Ladies and gentlemen, on June 6, at the designated border meeting point, Russian refrigerated trucks quietly parked, not carrying goods, nor humanitarian aid supplies, but rather 1,212 bodies of Ukrainian soldiers, those who fell not in victory, but in a drawn-out war, obscure and directionless. Yet what stunned the world, most of all, was Kyiv's refusal to retrieve them. The Ukrainian side was absent. Meanwhile, the Russian side stood there with a complete list, both wounded prisoners and bodies of dead soldiers. One side delivered, the other remained silent, but the morality play collapsed mid-stage. Russian presidential assistant Vladimir Medinsky publicly announced to the media, Kyiv neither showed up nor accepted the people, refused to receive the bodies, citing varied and rather bizarre reasons. It seems the Ukrainian government, too busy to worry about political image, rather than the remains of those who died for their homeland. The immediate question arises, what is Ukraine afraid of, the bodies of soldiers or the truth? Normally the bodies of the dead should be brought back for burial, no matter where they died. Those who have fallen deserve to return to their homeland. But for Kyiv, each dead soldier seems to be a political invoice and financial burden, paying compensation to families, covering burial costs, disclosing identities, all of which add up to a heavy burden. Each body is verified. Is this a conspiracy to mitigate publicized losses? If they don't claim the bodies, they won't have to report them, and won't have to spend money. A government that calls itself democratic, yet the supposedly righteous side in this war, dares not take responsibility for those who sacrificed. What could be more ironic? Or is Kyiv afraid of the wave of fury from thousands of families, when they learned their children died, not defending their homeland, but herded into a political campaign by Western powers? When this painful truth surfaces, Ukrainian mothers will turn and ask, why was my child's body returned by Russia? While Kyiv evades responsibility, no grand counterattack is needed, no missile required. Russia only needs to bring the bodies to the border. Each corpse is no longer a burden for the Russian army, but becomes a moral question Ukraine cannot evade. The Kyiv government is now caught in a dilemma. Accepting them means admitting colossal losses, sparking internal dissent. Refusing turns them into heartless betrayers of soldiers and their families, a strategic move that forces the world to take notice. Russia has shifted from military strategy to emotional strategy, striking directly at Ukraine's hidden moral tumor. This is not the first time Ukraine has shown tendencies of abandoning fallen soldiers. Before, similar incidents were previously exposed by Western media, hide or explain away logistically difficult. But this time, with over 1,200 bodies in a clear list, Ukraine's refusal becomes too hard to believe. In a world where the dead sometimes speak the truth more than the living, this silence is a confession. Kyiv fears the soldiers' corpses, not because they are cold, but because they are living proof of a damned foreign policy that has thrown tens of thousands into the fire pit to serve geopolitical calculations of the West. And it's not just the dead. Russia also stated they have sent a list of 640 Ukrainian prisoners, seriously wounded and young, in preparation for a humanitarian exchange. Representatives of the Russian Defense Ministry were present at the border, ready for this process. But then, in a bizarre reversal, Kyiv not only refused to receive the bodies, but also indefinitely postponed the exchange operation. Prisoners, citing indefinite reasons. They didn't show up at the meeting point. No response, no apology or official announcement. An entire government suddenly vanished from the most basic humanitarian act that even in war, people still strive to uphold. A nation may lack weapons, lack money, but it cannot lack humanity. If the Kyiv government still bears even a shred of responsibility for its people, then at least have the courage to face the cost of this war. While they are cheering on, no one blames Ukraine for its failures, but people will never forgive its indifference. Kyiv chose to side with the West, but will the West stand by the bodies of Ukrainian soldiers? Or will they keep promising more weapons, leading to more fresh corpses, while abandoning the old ones still unclaimed? And now, at the border, the refrigerated trucks still stand idle. 1,212 Ukrainian soldiers yet to return to their homeland. Perhaps they once believed they fought for freedom, for their country, yet their end was abandonment. A chilling silence from those who once thumped their chests, proclaiming to defend human rights. That is the price to pay, not just in blood, but in the corruption of a government unwilling to take responsibility. Because a killer is less terrifying than those who thrive on corpses, but still clapping hands and cheering victory. But before the bodies of fallen soldiers have even cooled, a new fire pit has already erupted. The roar of war engines resounds again, echoing across Eastern Europe's skies, signaling that the game is still ongoing, and a new fire is about to burn. What remains of reason? Poland, a NATO member, the most aggressive in the anti-Russia campaign, is now impatiently opening a new front at the Belarusian border. Trenches dug, civilians evacuated, fighter jets take off, and divisions stand ready for combat within 48 hours. Is Warsaw dreaming of becoming Kyiv's savior hero? Or is it simply that they too want to experience the bitter task of exchanging corpses, like the soldiers Ukraine is painfully facing? You're looking at the next fire in conflict between Russia and Ukraine. 48 hours, ready. Poland will storm across the Russian-Belarusian border. Divisions will be deployed. NATO fighter jets have taken off, trenches have been dug. Residents have been expelled from the border. Everything indicates that war is drawing dangerously near, and Russia-Belarus knows it well. In the context of the Russia-Ukraine conflict, unfolding more fiercely than ever, after Ukraine's spiderweb campaign, attacking a series of bases deep within Russian territory, both sides are exchanging a record number of airstrikes. A dubious record, perhaps Poland, NATO's most aggressive anti-Russian outpost, is attempting to open a second front, leaving Moscow unable to react. The first question is, why is Poland so fiercely hostile toward Russia? Poland sits at the crossroads between Eastern and Western Europe. Today, Russian forces in Ukraine are fighting on the front lines, just about 800 kilometers from the Polish border. The intersection's location brings huge economic benefits to Poland. However, it also means that Slovakia is the land boundary, natural like rivers and mountains, for easy defense. Historical complexities that haunt Poland, due to its eastern neighbors, guarding against thieves. And by 2014, an event occurred that truly alarmed Poland. After Russia annexed Crimea, the country then took two major steps in response. First, acquiring military technology from the US and South Korea. Second, consolidating its defense industrial base, merging 50 companies into a single conglomerate, named PGZ. In 2022, Russia launched its special military operation against Ukraine, phasing out outdated Soviet-era equipment. For example, the transfer of 260 tanks to Ukraine, mostly Soviet-era models, paving the way for a frenzied procurement campaign. If in the previous decade, Poland spent 1.9% of GDP on defense, roughly $10 billion, by 2024, this figure had risen to 4.2%, approximately $28 billion, with plans to increase it further to 4.7% this year, higher than any other NATO member. This funding fuels the arms race, aimed at replacing stockpiles with entirely new hardware. Take Poland, for instance, which has purchased 1,300 new main battle tanks. But what are these tanks meant for? Let's revisit this border. Poland shares a 530 kilometers border with Ukraine. According to open-source data, there are 8 land border crossings between the two countries and 4 additional railway routes. This is where most Western military aid passes through, despite Russia having repeatedly claimed that we don't want any of it. Yet Poland remains haunted by the thought that they need a contingency plan in case Russia occupies Ukraine, make this border hostile to them. Not only that, Poland also shares a border, 400 kilometers border with Belarus, a close ally of Russia. In short, Poland must be divided and disperse its forces nationwide for defense. It's clear why they need a literal human shield. In the truest sense, when Russia advanced into Ukraine, Poland has the 9th largest armed force in NATO. Now, after 3 years, they rank 3rd behind the US and Turkey, with over 216,000 active duty troops, including 90,000 combat soldiers. Poland views the current threat from Belarus as 2,000 stationed Russian troops and 50,000 professional Belarusian troops currently in active service. At the same time, Poland consistently accuses Belarus of herding thousands of migrants to Poland's borders to exert political pressure on Warsaw. However, Poland's greater concern is Russia's nuclear umbrella in Belarus. After the conflict with Ukraine erupted in 2022, Russia has sought to strengthen its military influence in Belarus to consolidate strategic position in Eastern Europe. In May 2023, the Russian President, Vladimir Putin, made the decision, tactical nuclear deployment in Belarus. At Min's suggestion, it was the first time Russia sends hot goods out of the country. Essentially no different from how the US has long deployed them on its allies' territories. So, you see? So, Western friends, don't overreact like this. That same month, Russia completed the refurbishment of 10 Belarusian aircraft to enable nuclear payloads, simultaneously transferring short-range ballistic missile systems, Iskander SS-26, to Belarus. By the end of December 2023, President Lukashenko announced the transfer process from Russia had been completed. Note that the Iskander has a launch range of up to 500 kilometers. This is sufficient to threaten targets in Poland and neighboring regions, with Russia-upgraded strike aircraft. Belarus could deploy tactical nuclear airstrikes. This enhances the flexibility within the military strategy of the Russia-Belarus alliance, Lithuania's airbase, with its strategic location near NATO borders, considered an ideal place to deploy these aircraft. Notably, in November 2024, Russia first used intermediate-range ballistic missiles, organic in the military conflict in Ukraine. Russian President Vladimir Putin announced that these missiles could be deployed in Belarus by the second half of 2025. Bad news for the West, because the Orechnik has an even longer range than the Iskander, significantly enhancing Russia's deterrence capability in the Eastern European region. That's why Poland is now feeling the fire is already at its doorstep. Regardless, at this very moment, Russia and Belarus are preparing for a joint military exercise. Zapad 2025, while one is already overwhelmed with work, must also participate fully immediately. Ukrainian President Zelensky declared, the military exercise is just a cover for Russia to prepare a new offensive strike. A Ukrainian armed forces hero stated that, looking at Belarus this summer, Russia is preparing something under the guise of military exercises. However, that's often how their new offensives begin. But this time, where? Ukraine, Lithuania, Poland. God help us. Yet we must all be prepared. All our institutions are ready to cooperate, Zelensky said, but provided no evidence to support his accusations. Regardless, Poland seems to share that view. They announced coordination with NATO to prepare for the largest military exercise in years. But that's not all. Russia's Chara Grab TV pointed to multiple signs indicating that Poland and NATO are preparing an attack on Russia and Belarus. Accordingly, the border between Poland and Belarus and Russia's Kaliningrad region is burning hot. Defensive structures are being built, roads are being repaired to facilitate troop movement and military equipment deployment. More divisions are being deployed. Meanwhile, Poland continues to expel civilians from border areas under the pretext of defense. Russia perceives these actions as strong indicators of war preparations. This campaign is called Safe Port Lacy. It was launched last year under the guise of preventing illegal migration, orchestrated by Belarus toward Poland. However, instead of using border guards, Warsaw has turned this area into a large-scale military campaign. The Polish military is allegedly concealing the scale of troops and weapons under the campaign, along with reinforcements from the 18th Division, including units in combat-ready status, within 48 hours. Additionally, there are also special forces and other security agencies. NATO is also increasing its presence in Poland, deploying fighter jets to bases here, while constructing fortifications near the border. Analysts suggest Warsaw's goal is to force Russia and Belarus to end the Zapad exercises early, or even compel Russia to withdraw troops from Belarus. Furthermore, reports indicate that Polish intelligence are also preparing to transport explosives into Belarusian territory, allegedly plastic-based. Earlier this April, men claimed they thwarted a plot to smuggle 580 kilograms of explosives from Poland into Belarus. This is highly likely intended to instigate explosions near the joint military exercise area between Russia and Belarus. In the area bordering Kaliningrad, Russia, Poland, and NATO ally Lithuania are urgently constructing defensive structures. According to Politico, one of the two main routes between Lithuania and Poland is being upgraded to facilitate rapid military transport. In addition, checkpoints and concrete barriers are being erected, with completion planned by 2028. Will upgrade 113 kilometers of roads and 8 bridges. The price of security is the sacrifice of the people. Poland has forcibly seized land from border region farmers and provided only symbolic compensation, though the government claims to respect ownership rights. Yet reality shows numerous lawsuits over injustices are being filed in court. The head of Poland's Truth Foundation stated, dozens of plots in the Pulaski region were acquired by the state near the Belarusian border. Initially, the budget was estimated at $2.6 billion. However, Poland's defense ministry proposed an increase. Meanwhile, the Polish government decided to exclude these border areas from the development program of the Northeast region. Residents of affected districts have sent protest letters due to suffering losses, due to loss of tourists, businesses shutting down, unemployment rising sharply, population leaving. Despite escalating tensions, some experts believe Poland will first seek to strike Belarus with soft warfare, rather than hastily resorting to force. Poland is quietly building influence from within, offering scholarships to Belarusian students at Polish and European universities, particularly the European University in Vilnius, exclusively for Belarusian students. More Belarusian students study in the EU than in Russia. They also leverage influence through the church, Catholic and Polish origin priests, even within Russia. One scenario mentioned is, mean war will break out tomorrow. by the end of Lukashenko's presidential term, by 2030, and the Allies could simultaneously attack Belarus, from both inside and outside, while also targeting Russia's Kaliningrad region. This is supported by statements, recently from German and Nordic elites, that Russia will attack in 2030. At this moment, all are still in the stage of threatening each other, common when international tensions are high. This does not mean is war will break out tomorrow. Yet these very troop movements, these intensive military drills, over time, it becomes the spark for a world war. What do you think about this issue? Please leave your thoughts in the comments. Remember to subscribe and visit the channel daily. For now, goodbye and see you again.